We do a thing called a hot take on this channel sometimes, and I actually think I have an interesting question for one that could lead into it. So here and they didn't bring traps back. They did not bring them back in
I am sad.
Zendikar sets, and it's a very very unique and special kind of card, right? It's not like I don't think it's the best design, but like definitely Archive Trap is something that is really cool. And the card like Trap Maker Snare, Trap Finder Snare is a very, very unique design. Should traps come back? Is there a way to make traps awesome? Or do you think that there's an inherent problem with traps? Like, would you guys bring them back if you could?
I would absolutely, 100%. I find it kind of disrespectful that they even printed a card called Chilling Trap in the new Zendikar, which isn't a trap. And that pissed me off. Also, there's a Nimble Trap Finder, and there's no traps for him to find, right? Like,
what is that about?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I would bring them back. I understand that they think they've hit a lot of the easier sort of hits for traps, but there's still interesting things you can do with traps, right? You could make traps. I mean, a lot of traps in the past have they've been sort of sideboard cards, or with the exception of Archive Trap, a lot of them have been more sideboard card type things. They're like color hate or whatever. But like, I think that's open. I think there's definitely areas that they could go to with traps that they haven't done before, right? Like, I mean, they've shown that they're willing to print cards like the Veil of Summer cycle. So like, why not, make them a little more niche, but still have them there, right?
I mean, I think I played Runeflare Trap Standard, blue-red Runeflare Trap back in those days, back when Alex was playing, Vengevine and Lightning was running, rampant. I played like this Runeflare Trap deck, and I was like just totally delighted. Like, there's a really, really fun gambling sort of interplay that goes on when you look at your opening hand and you don't know what your opponent's playing, and then all of a sudden they do something, you're like, oh sweet, this is gonna be this. Like, how excited do you get, Charlotte, when you're sitting there and you see the two Archive Traps in your hand and you're like, just play a fetch land, just play a fetch land. Just if you just play a fetch land, I'm so happy. Like, that's like a fun sort of random side to it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, something that's been really interesting is so for the last, I want to say year, but it may have been 2 years, Mark Rosewater has been posting more thorough design handoff documents. So it's the document that he gives to the development team or the play design team now, once they're done designing set, kind of walking through everything. And something he's been doing for the last 2 weeks, and maybe the weeks between Zendikar and Commander Legends coming out, is he's been he released the same kind of article, but for the original Zendikar and through the development of traps, and how they kind of got to where they got to, because originally they were enchantments or artifacts. I think they were enchantments, and then the quests were artifacts that they were called maps at that point, so they were trying to differentiate. But the enchantment version were much more like Aven Mind Sensors or Ashiok, or kind of the static ability on Planeswalkers, where it would be like, if this happens, you can play this with flash and put it into play, and then static effect would happen. And that was kind of where it started. And then they realized that they did something, I think, in instant and sorceries, and they also were moving quests they moved maps into quests. And so eventually, just like through the shakeout of everything, it became more fun to do this version of a trap because it was like more of a surprise. And they wanted that to be a little bit more of what was going on. And yeah, I agree that, and he did say during the design articles that like traps were on the list of things to be brought back. They just were not as high as the things that they felt like they needed to do Zendikar the right way again. And that's also kind of where like allies were. And like kind of one of the things he says, like one of the problems we have is there's so much for Zendikar that we could go into that we're very likely going to return to this plane again because there's just so much more we could do. Not only are the mechanics that we couldn't put in here that were cool, but because we didn't do them, there's these things. And I think kind of one of the things was modal double-faced cards took up the space that traps would have been in. And because that's like the theme of the year, not necessarily that they took up the space from a like they do the same thing, but more that because they had a focus on those.
Right, they're sort of the flexible card of the year, basically.
Right, and so like they I think I wish they did this. I don't know if this he did not mention. And maybe it's because they like are going to do it later. I wish they did those with traps. And I mean, maybe that's the problem, is that like what you want is a double-faced land card that you play, and then on the back end is a trap of some variety that it flips over when they like trigger it. That would be amazing, but you can't do that with modal double-faced cards.
Right. You'd need traditional transforming DFCs for that.
Right. Like regular transform next time you go to Zendikar.
That would actually be sweet. Like you play this land, and it's like when an opponent searches their library, you may pay whatever. If you do, exile this and you may cast it, or exile this and put it onto the stack transformed or something.
Right. Where like you get the trap side of it, and because it like sits in play. I just like wonder if there would be a way to do it where you wouldn't know what the other side of the card is. And like, I don't know if and maybe this is the problem, right? Like, how do you do? You could just break the
sort
rule.
of like land morph variant for that almost.
Yeah, or just like Emrakul Waste. Like next time we just do this on Zendikar. You do it here. Emrakul was on Zendikar. We're back. We're here. Emrakul Waste. They are all wastes. They all say Emrakul Waste on the top end, but they're different cards on the backside. I fixed the problem.
Well, yeah, but then that doesn't work.
That breaks the rules.
Cards need to be the same based on names and stuff. But yeah, anyway, this isn't a design podcast. But
my last question for you guys before we get to the last bits of the episode here. Does Wizards look at Battle for Zendikar as a successful set? I think Zendikar and this new one are both looked at as pretty successful, but is Battle looked at as a success?
I don't think so. There was a lot of hate. People didn't like it because they took Adventure World and made it into like Eldrazi War World, which was not what people signed up for. Right?
It kind of felt they like tried making everyone happy on things, and then by doing so they made no one happy. Like they took Rise of Eldrazi, which was a very like a smaller audience, but a very beloved set, doing a specific thing. But that thing was so out of the frame of reference that other people didn't like it, and so they tried making it what other people would like. And at the same time, they took Zendikar, which people liked, and continued to not give them anything. And so and then on top of that, you have processing, which is a weird mechanic. One of my like distinct memories of like the second time I ever hung out with Gavin was like we were drafting Conspiracy, and like Jimmy was like, hey, how do you feel about Battle for Zendikar? This Conspiracy set's so hype, we're hyped. And he was like, what I'll tell you is that it's weird. And like Gavin's positive on everything. And so like the fact that he was like, this is a weird set and I don't know what to think about it is saying a lot about, and that was before it came out to people who like his job is to hype us about being hyped about a thing. I feel like they definitely are more on the sad face.
I definitely feel like the current Zendikar is a big win. I'm a big fan of the set. I think the double faced. I think the land cards are one of the better designs.
Oh yeah, they're amazing.
Long time.
Love
they're
them.
like
Love
it's
them.
just it feels good to play them, and it made specifically the format I'm playing a lot of it. The current moment is historic, and it made my historic experience more fun to be able to play the ruins, and Agadeem's Awakening. Like just putting those in my deck felt great.
Yeah.
This is more fun Magic.
I mean, I also love that they're enabling people to do stupid shit, like playing landless Belcher decks now in Modern and everything.
Right. There's the Oops All Lands deck that plays all of the pay 3 life ones, right? Like, and it plays Salvage Belcher, Titan, and it plays like
Belcher.
That dumb black creature you can discard, Phantasmagorian, like all those dumb cards.
Phantasmagorian, love that card. I mean, like a deck list that I found in bringing up all the deck lists that I wanted to talk about in this episode. Oh, I guess before we get into that, thanks so much for listening to the Hot Take. We do Hot Takes every Friday. They're this new thing, or it's not a new thing. We used to do them Monday. They now come on Fridays. Make sure to check out the full episode. Charlotte was here. We talk about Mill and all the cool things you can do in Mill decks, and definitely please check that out. Charlotte, where can people find you on the internet? For the Hot Take?
Best place to find me is on Twitter at JackalGirl, which is JQL Girl. I'm also on the RC Discord and plenty of other Commander Discords. That's the best way to get in touch.
And for those tuning in that won't listen up, she's on the CAG. She's one of the CAG members. That is where you may recognize her from. As long as judging and a bunch of other Magic content over the years.